Welcome back, everyone. Those of you that made it back, who chose to spend the rest of your tour with me and not hop on a shuttle bus. Hope everybody enjoyed their stop downtown. I heard a few comments that it wasn't enough time, but I know this time of year and this time of night, we don't have a lot of shops open, lots of bars and pubs. We actually have the most licensed establishment seating per capita anywhere in British Columbia here in Victoria. We do like our pubs and bars and restaurants of pilings, of cedar pilings, and then built the Empress Hotel on top of those pilings. So Francis Rattenbury is credited with around 50 buildings throughout this region. He was a very, very successful architect here. Obviously, our three most iconic buildings in downtown are all Francis Rattenbury builds. But when he first started, so he arrived here, came over from England. Prior to leaving England, he was working for his uncles in their architecture firm, but he wasn't quite finished all of the prerequisites, everything that he needed to be a full-fledged architect. The reason his uncle sent him away was he was starting to get himself into some trouble, and so his uncle figured, maybe a trip to the New World might sort things out, and so he sent Francis here. And shortly after arriving, Francis saw that the government was looking for a new government or a government building here, and he was an accomplished draftsman, a really good artist, and so he put in an application, he put in a tender for the competition that was going on. Obviously, at a time where they didn't have much fact checking and Google definitely did not exist. Francis Rattenbury, in his application to get the commission for that building, he actually took credit for several buildings in Europe that were built long before he was ever born. The people making the decision liked his renderings, they liked the drafts that he did, they liked the budget that he proposed, and so he got the commission for that building. And it led to a very successful architecture career here. Like I said, credited with nearly 50 buildings, most of which still stand today. So just on our right here, if you look just down below us to the right, so I mentioned at the beginning of the tour that we have two ferries that make their way from downtown Victoria over to Washington State. So the Coho, the very large ferry that goes directly across the strait over to Port Angeles, leaves from here just down to our right. And then as we continue along, I spoke a little bit about the Clipper, which is a smaller high-speed catamaran that daily, a couple of times a day, makes the same trip that your cruise ship is going to make overnight tonight. And this is the Clipper terminal here, just down to our right. So right now we are making our way through. This is the very first. So it is the same residential neighborhood that the cruise ship is docked in, but it also happens to be the very first neighborhood to get built up outside the gates of Fort Victoria. So this is the neighborhood of James Bay. James Bay, very historic neighborhood here in Greater Victoria. A lot of really old heritage homes, heritage buildings through here. Also lots of hotels. Got most of the stretch of road here along our right hand side is taken up with a few condo buildings, but most of these are hotels along the right hand side. And then just up and into our left, lots of heritage homes through here. So we have a very active heritage foundation here in Victoria. lots of different rules around what you are allowed and not allowed to do with a heritage home. Most of the rules center around the outside or the facade of the home. In terms of inside, even if it has a heritage designation, you're usually allowed to renovate or do whatever you like to the inside of the house, but you do have to get approval on any renovations or anything you might want to do on the outside of a home if you have a heritage home here, especially here in James Bay. And as we go along here, if you have a look down into the right, you might get a glimpse. We've got some float homes down here. So this is Victoria's version of Fisherman's Wharf Park. Not to be confused, it's much smaller than the Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. But again, another connection to San Francisco. Lots of really neat float homes down there. And then during the day, Fisherman's Wharf, very busy. Lots of little floating restaurants down there, right on the dock. And we have a condo building directly in front of us called Shoal Point. And so we are, in terms of our real estate here in Greater Victoria, we are quite expensive. We're the third most expensive city in Canada to live in. And for our real estate values, we're right behind Vancouver and Toronto at number 3. But this building right here, the penthouse in this building, is actually per square foot the most expensive real estate in all of Greater Victoria. The penthouse in that building at one time, he doesn't live there now or own it now. He did sell it a number of years ago, but David Foster once owned the penthouse in that building, the famous music producer. And just on the right hand side, just before we pull back into the cruise ship terminal, is our Coast Guard, one of our Coast Guard terminals there. So here in Canada, the Coast Guard they don't handle any sort of marine enforcement duties at all. So unlike down in the US with the Coast Guard, I'm sure the Coast Guard's out on the water with their gunboats and that sort of thing. But here in Canada, the Coast Guard, when they're out on the water, they're simply in a search and rescue role or search and rescue capacity, and they do some tending to some buoys and that sort of thing out on the water. But any sort of enforcement or law enforcement on the water or marine enforcement would all fall under the jurisdiction of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And we are making our way back. So I'm gonna get as close to the ship as I possibly can in terms of our parking spot. Just a quick note: in order to get back on the ship, you do not go back in the way you came out. So you need to come over. So this building here to our right with the red awning around it, you actually need to come around to the other side. So you come around to this side of the building in order to return to your ship. There's lots of signs there pointing you in the direction of how to return to your ship. But you have to come around the front where the red awning is there. Works out perfectly for them. You need to go right in front of the souvenir shop before you can get back on your ship. Somehow I think they do that on purpose. And before we get all the way back and pull up in front of the ship there, I would just like to take this opportunity on behalf of Experience Victoria, and on behalf of your ship, and on behalf of Pacific Northwest Transportation Services, who employs me and owns this bus, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for joining me this evening I know the night tours are sometimes a little hit and miss with what you can see on the tour, but I'm glad everybody joined me tonight on the tour, and I hope you enjoyed our little night lights tour of Victoria, and I hope you have a great final night of your cruise. And again, just one final reminder, just when you get off the bus here, just go in front of the building there with the red awning, and there'll be signs there telling you how to, pointing you in the direction to return to your ship. And again, everybody have a great rest of your night.
Yung Victoria, British Columbia. So, gabi na kasi dumating dito. Kaya, gabi yung tour. So, hindi masyado ma-appreciate. Pero ganun talaga. Yeah, ito yung mga paninda nila. Souvenirs. Dami ding bumibili. Pero tapos na kami bumili ng shopping. So uwi na kami. Yeah. To ship. Okay. Going back home. Back to the ship. So ito, balik na naman sa barko. So ito yung barko natin, hihintay. Balik na naman yan, alas 11. Kaya ito, balik na yung mga tao dito. Lakad, malayo. So ito, paikot dito. So kaya Canada. Daming tao dyan, mga turista. Yung barko natin, pauwi na tayo. Ito yung port nila dito. Malamig na kasi Canada to, pero mas maganda hindi siya nag-umulan, kaya naka-chance tayo umikot sandali doon. Kaso gabi na, kaya hindi natin ma-appreciate. Mas maganda yung araw, pero kita-kita natin yung lugar, pero malapad yung port nila dito. Yan, ito, yan, ikot. Yan, at saka dito na yung lugar dito. Yan. Yan. Ito na yung barko natin. Diyan. Yan. At saka yan. May mga picture pa yan dyan. Doon na papuntang papasok. Yan. Pasok yan. Maganda din ang experience. Gabi kasi. Kaya hindi masyado clear yung lugar. Pero maganda ang lugar. Maraming lights pag gabi na. Dito tayo papasok sa ramp na ito. Yan. Security. Saka dito tayo papasok. Tayo papasok. Yan. Ito yung pasahero. Kami dyan. Doon. May security check dito. Parang pinaka So dito. Yan.